All right, today I'm going to tell you about one of my single favorite pieces of baby gear that costs over $600, has zero storage. Some would say it's probably too heavy and more than likely will become useless for you in 12 months. On paper, it sounds like a terrible investment, but if you care more about fewer steps than features or the latest and greatest tech on there, nothing really comes close to this. And I can tell you after 2 kids, it's the single best money I think that we've spent because it's not just a product, it's a solution to what I feel is an underrated problem of new parenthood. And that's why even after 10 years, the Doona remains undefeated. Or when we had our first baby, like most parents, we overthought the entire process. We spent weeks researching gear, reading reviews, comparing strollers, and it honestly felt like we were buying a used car. Our son was a car nap kid. He was the kind of kid where you had to drive around for hours just to get 30 minutes of peace. And if you're a parent, you know what typically happens next. You pull into the driveway, and the second you lift them out of the car seat, game over, they're awake. That transition just wakes them up. We have never been successful at transitioning babies from a car seat while they're asleep into a crib. But the Doona fixed that for us. One click, out of the car, wheels down, and the baby is still asleep. That was honestly one thing as we were trying to figure out the story for this video. As I looked through thousands of pictures, the Doona was just central to all of that. No transfers, no meltdowns, a happy baby in the stroller. And all you would hear after you'd get out of the car is just the sound of wheels on the pavement. No crying baby involved. And that was the moment for us when it went from a nice to have to we never left home without it. The thing that really stuck out to me is how easy this thing was to maneuver for us, but also even for our toddler at the time. The Doona took a dozen tiny stressful decisions out of having to figure out what to do next. And that's actually what I think new parents really need the most of. It's not just all of the new features, but it's fewer steps and less friction and making your life easier. It's getting out of the rain faster or getting out of the car. Those seemingly small steps, I think, are perfect examples of what's really happening because the newborn phase, you're sleep deprived, you're learning everything for the first time, you're carrying a diaper bag that I feel like looks like you're about to go on deployment for 6 months. The Doona doesn't just help us move, it reduced the cognitive load that we had to have and figuring out the number of steps or the number of items required to get out the door. And so taking out 3 or 4 of those steps from every single trip was huge for us. And when your life at that point is 95% logistics, a product that makes it 5% easier feels 500% more valuable. And that one-click idea was powerful enough to create an entire new category for Doona, but it seemed to continue to evolve from that point on. And it's rare that a design that simple survives a decade because most products get louder and add more features and add more colors, but I think the Doona has just gotten better over time. When Andrew first reviewed the Doona back in 2020 on the channel, that was the original Doona Plus. And even then, he called it a game changer because that's how impressive it was. It wasn't meant to be a system. It was meant to be one product that you use to make your life easier as new parents. What's more impressive about Doona is I think they've been listening to the feedback. And so when we look at what they've done since 2020, they've released the Doona Eye, which actually meets the more strict European eye size safety standards. They've added an adjustable headrest and an integrated 5-point harness system, which are small tweaks, but I think they really make a difference in fit and safety. Most recently, they launched the Doona X. So this one, I think, addresses a major drawback of the original, and that is the recline. The X now has 3 recline positions, which include a lie flat mode. They've even upgraded the wheels for better suspension. The core idea has been around the one-step transformation, and that hasn't changed. Doona has continued to refine the details around that key value proposition for parents. And they're solving the problems that parents are talking about. And it's really about making your life easier and how many steps it takes you to get out the door. This sounds like a Doona hype video and that they don't do anything wrong. But if we're being honest, it's not perfect. And it's not just about these seamless transitions. There are real daily, I'll call them annoyances because they're not necessarily major drawbacks, but just slight things that'll annoy you the more you use it. First thing is the weight. This thing is heavy. It's manageable, but it's not light. And so that's something that as you're traveling and as you're going on with your daily routine. Just something to keep in mind. Second, and this is the biggest one for me, and I think for most parents, is that there's zero storage, and I really mean zero. You have to buy a specific snap-on bag that is even small at that point. It might hold a diaper and a small pack of wipes. The third thing is the lifespan is short. Your baby will outgrow it, more than likely by their first birthday, either by height or by weight. And it's going to be a painful transition because you just spent all this money on a new piece of equipment that's made your life easier. And you're going from that all-in-one convenience back into a two-part system. And finally, I think the wheels are built for cities. They're not necessarily built for off-roading or for trails. They're small and perfect for smooth pavement, but the second you hit gravel, grass, or even uneven sidewalks, the ride does get a little bit bumpy, and it's not meant to be an all-terrain wagon or stroller. But so if the Doona is that good, why does anything else really exist? And honestly, I think it comes down to the fact that different parents prioritize different things. So in order to be really fair, we want to break down the top contenders and who I think they're for. First up is the direct competitor, the Evenflo Shyft DualRide. The argument for this one is that why would I pay more for the name brand and the Doona when this brand does the same thing? And it's a good question, but the common feedback when we look at reviews and what other parents are saying who have tried this and have used both is that you will actually feel the difference in quality between the Evenflo Shyft and the Doona. This is huge just because it's really about the mechanism of going from car seat to stroller. The key call out of this one is that it just isn't as smooth and it feels heavier and a bit clunky. Then I think you have a different category of competitors that are all around just lightweight travel strollers. And their main selling point in my mind is just portability and longevity, because you can use this thing outside of the newborn phase and they weigh next to nothing. They fold down more often than not with one hand and are compact enough to put it in an airplane's overhead compartment. The argument for them is valid on the long-term value, but some parents I think would say that they don't want to focus on buying a Doona for 1 year where they could use something like this until their kid is 4. The trade-off is I think you go back into that two-part system right in the beginning. You're juggling a separate car seat and a separate stroller. You have to deal with all of that in the space that it takes up. Whereas with the Doona, you don't have to bring another stroller with you. You just have that. There's no need to take up additional space. Each of these products win in its own lane, but the Doona, I think, really creates a lane of its own, and it's really focused on the art of the transition. I remember the first time that we traveled with the Doona, and we were already going to the airport with so many bags and so many carry-ons. And so we brought the Doona with us. We have a great picture that always comes to mind of the Doona actually sitting in the window seat, because the baby had to get the window seat, but the Doona sitting in the window seat on the plane, and all we had to do was wheel it into the plane and wheel it off and then get into the rental car. And I know all of this sounds slightly dramatic, but the more steps that you can remove from your process, especially as a new parent and especially as a parent traveling, it just makes your life that much easier. The Doona really focuses, in my mind, on making it easier for you to get out the door, get in the car, and then don't have to think about all these different components or setting up a stroller. You just really have to focus on the stroller itself. All right, so after all this time and all the things about the Doona, what I've learned is that it's not just about the product itself. I think it's about the philosophy and what they try to make you feel as a new parent. It's fewer steps and keeping it as simple as possible so you can protect your peace as a parent. And I think that's huge, because the truth is that no stroller, no gadget, no app can make parenting easy. Parenting's hard and there's going to be things that you just have to figure out, but the right tools at the right moment can make it a little bit lighter and less cumbersome for you. And in those first few months, that's everything. And so that's why the Doona remains undefeated, because it didn't just carry our kids, it felt like it carried us and made our lives easier too. For the parents watching, please let us know what was the one piece of gear that really did that for you. If you have any other questions, drop them down below. We'll make sure to get to them. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.